I heard it before I saw anything. The kind of laugh people use when they're performing, not living. It ricocheted off tile and stainless steel, bright and sharp, carrying from the kitchen down the hallway. I had just come in from the garage, still in my work jacket, already half thinking about reheated lasagna and a long shower before bed. My name's Evan Price, 38, operations manager for a logistics firm in Denver. The kind of job where you spend your days solving other people's bottlenecks and your evenings hoping no new ones are waiting at home. I popped open the fridge, fingers closing around a cold beer. That's when I realized my wife had her friends on speaker. I slowed automatically, not sneaking exactly, just caught in the pause between curiosity and reflex. Then came the laugh again, and the line that froze everything around me. I control him with one thing. Works every time. I didn't stomp in or cough like some sitcom husband demanding recognition. I just stood there, hand still gripping the fridge handle, the quiet hum of the compressor holding the moment together like tension wire. The thin blue-white light from inside washed over my knuckles. Slowly, I closed the door without a sound and leaned back against the counter, just out of sight. The voices were familiar. The same two women she met for brunch once a month. The ones who told her relationships need playful testing, which I'd eventually learn translated to keep him guessing. It keeps you interesting. Her tone was lively, almost proud. You could hear the thrill of someone talking about power like it was self-discovery. The details didn't matter. I didn't catch every word. I grasped the structure immediately. If I pushed back, she'd freeze me out. If I disagreed, she'd retreat. If I wanted closeness, it became currency. The thing about hearing a sentence like that is that your mind doesn't think betrayal. It thinks, oh, that's why. And then it replays 1,000 little moments in perfect clarity. 2 Tuesdays ago when she brushed past me stone-faced because I canceled a last-minute dinner. The weekend I suggested staying within budget on furniture, and she went quiet for 24 hours. The time I reached for her hand and she promised tomorrow. Like affection was a coupon set to expire. The room didn't feel different, but I did. I didn't bother listening to her friends' support lines or their giggling. Instead, I stepped quietly away from the doorway, climbed the stairs like a man suddenly remembering something left behind upstairs. Calm, steady, no noise. Our bedroom was dim except for the slice of streetlight carving a pale bar across the wall. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the thin line of dust along the dresser. It's strange where your eyes land when you're trying not to feel anything big. I spend my life managing systems, trucking routes, timing, weight capacities, efficiency curves. My entire career is built on seeing potential breakdowns before they hit. And that night, I realized I'd been treating my marriage exactly like that. A system I could fix if I just kept adjusting. Be patient. Offer grace. Plan weekends. Stay consistent. I thought consistency would heal. But hearing her say she controlled me with one thing rewired the whole equation. I changed into a t-shirt, sat at my desk, didn't bother turning on the lamp. The house had that winter silence, the low furnace hum, the occasional car gliding by outside, laughter muffled below. My hand hovered over my laptop, muscle memory. Then I closed it. I didn't need data analytics tonight, just facts. Fact. She'd replaced cooperation with manipulation. Fact. She had dressed control up as intimacy and called it maturity. Fact. I had been trained. There's a clean, sterile calm that comes when everything clicks into alignment. It's ugly, but it's clarity, and clarity demands movement. I thought of the smaller signs I'd ignored, the sudden boundaries that only ran one way, the enthusiasm for spontaneity only when it meant her plans, the dead-eyed affection that switched off the second friends weren't watching. The performative love that existed only for an audience. I wasn't angry. I was awake, a text buzzed on my phone. A buddy from work. Still in for the Saturday hike? Without thinking, I typed yes. Small commitment. Big shift. Because suddenly I saw how many plans I'd canceled. How often I'd left weekends open just in case she wanted me again. I'd built my schedule around her moods. Given my time away like rental hours. When did I become my own understudy? Downstairs, laughter rose again, bright and bladed. Then a door opened, footsteps toward the garage. She was stepping out to take the private part of the call, the part she wouldn't have cared to protect if it were mine. I lay back on the bed, eyes tracing the fan blades. They tilted, steady, unhurried, distributing weight perfectly, a balance I'd forgotten to keep. In freight, if you load too much on one side, the axle wears down. Shift weight forward, you lose traction. Shift back, you fishtail. Our marriage had been fishtailing for years. I kept correcting the wheel. She... Like the slide. People think those moments end in shouting, table flips, tears, but I don't like theatrics. I believe in measurable plans, so I made one. It started with a quiet boundary she wouldn't even notice at first. The only currency she believed she had with me, the one thing she used as the lever, was going off the market. When the lever disappears, the machine stops responding. Later that night, she came upstairs, hair smelling of that expensive shampoo she buys through coupon codes and influencers. Her phone landed face down on the nightstand, as usual. I looked over and said, "Hey," just that, level. She smiled, that soft habitual smile, and slipped into bed without reaching for me. That used to sting. That night it only informed me. Information is clean. It doesn't beg for reaction, it demands action. I didn't sleep much. My mind was too busy redistributing weight. Around 1:30, I opened my notes app. Wrote a list. Gym before work. MWF. Saturday hike. Call my brother. Schedule that physical. Oil change. New boots. Nothing dramatic. Nothing cinematic, just mine. Quiet reclamations. Small systems returning to balance. At about 2 a.m., the furnace kicked on. She rolled over, pulling the blanket tighter. A line of light from the street lamps slowly inched down the wall like time itself marking distance. I remembered something my father used to say when he taught me to drive in snow outside. Fort Collins. Don't overcorrect. Point where you want to go, and hold steady. That's all I did. By morning, the house smelled of coffee and dawn. I poured a cup, set my running shoes by the door. She drifted in, kissed my cheek absently. "Coming to dinner with my friends this weekend?" "I've got plans," I said casually. Her smile flashed, blinked, adjusted into neutrality. "Ah, okay. No problem." I could see the surprise trying not to show. I sipped coffee, noted the shift in her expression, a tiny glitch in control, wrote a mental reminder, pick up trail mix for Saturday. Something had changed, not just in her, but in me. I'd been living with my own system on someone else's terms, calling it love. That morning, I adjusted the settings, and the first quiet test arrived, just like winter always does here. One invisible layer at a time, until you realize your own breath is visible. 2 mornings later, she floated into the kitchen wearing that energized mood she stretches over herself when she's confident she's winning again. I was measuring protein powder into a shaker, hiking snacks lined up on the counter. "Big plans today?" she asked lightly, watching me scoop almonds. "Yeah," I said. "Heading out early. Won't be back till late afternoon." She hesitated. A flicker of calculation crossed her face. "We were going to go rug shopping with Kara, but okay. Once upon a time, I'd have adjusted. Suggested meeting them after, solved the schedule like a problem at work. Now I just smiled. "Hope you find a good one," I said, sealing the lid. Her smile faltered, a millisecond offbeat. Nothing theatrical, just a skipped rhythm in a routine that used to belong to her. The rest of the week built from there, small moments stacking like quiet victories. When she tried her usual tactic, the closed shop routine, because I asked to confirm plans before she filled our weekend, I didn't chase it. I worked late, answered emails, hit the gym, slept well. The silence didn't feel like punishment anymore. It felt like weather. You bring a jacket or you don't, but the clouds don't owe you anything. And for the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for sun drivers and docks. I texted her that I'd be late and to start dinner without me. When I came in, she had takeout on the counter and a look that said I'd missed my cue. "We were supposed to go by Megan's," she said, stacking containers like she was arranging evidence. "You said you'd make it." I said I'd try. We had trucks sitting for 40 minutes. It fixed it. She gave me the kind of smile people use when they're convinced you just admitted to a crime. "Right. Work comes first." "Tonight it did," I said, calm and uncolored. "Tomorrow might not. That is to earn me a freeze so sharp I'd feel it in my teeth." She lifted a shoulder, took her food to the couch, and toggled the TV with the volume slightly higher than normal. I ate at the counter and read dispatch notes. On Thursday, she tried the old leverage trick over something small. The HOA had emailed about trimming the maple out front, and I'd booked a crew for Saturday morning. She wanted to do it next week because Kara was coming over to shoot photos in the living room and thought the latter would ruin the vibe. I told her the crew had an opening and I took it. The smirk arrived right on cue. "We'll see how much you miss me tonight," she said, almost playful, like a parent threatening to withhold dessert. "Okay," I said and rinsed my cup. She didn't expect the okay. The game needs a chase. Without it, she had to decide whether to be mad or bored. She picked bored and went upstairs early. I finished a spreadsheet, set my alarm, and slept fine. By the weekend, the pattern was lit up like runway lights. Every time I didn't bend, she moved to one of 3 stations: quiet removal, sarcasm, or sudden sweetness. I noticed the sequence long before she did. Saturday morning, while the tree guy set up, she put on the robe that used to deter any plan I had, even yard work. She wandered out with coffee and asked what I wanted for breakfast in that soft voice couples fall in love with. "I'm good," I said, checking the invoice. "They'll start in 10 minutes. Her face didn't crack exactly. It recalculated. I could almost hear the gears. She tried a different angle, reminding me about an art fair downtown. I told her I'd already booked a tune-up for the car at 1 p.m. and planned a run after Simple, Boring Mine. That afternoon, she shifted to the second station. "You've been distant," she said, folding laundry she never folds. Like proximity might summon the old program. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's organized," I said. "Work's heavy. I'm catching up on stuff I let slide. Let slide like sleep cardio, oil changes, lunch with my brother." She heard the subtext even if I didn't underline it. Her jaw tightened. Then she let it go with a shrug that wanted to look casual. On Sunday, I decided to try something I should have done months ago. Speak once cleanly. We were making coffee at the same time. The kind of parallel choreography that couples either find comforting or suffocating. I kept my eyes on the mug. I'm going to say this without a debate attached. I said, "When you pull back to influence me, it doesn't make me want to move toward you. It makes the whole thing feel cheap." She blinked like I'd opened a window in January. "I don't do that." "I'm not asking you to agree," I said. "I'm telling you how it lands. I'm not playing along anymore." Silence. The water finished boiling. Something old in me wanted to rush, fill it, soothe it, offer a lighter version. I let the silence stand there with us and steam the air. She finally laughed. "That practice light sound. You're being dramatic. I'm being specific." That line ended the scene without the usual messy third act. She took her coffee to the living room and scrolled her phone with thumbs that moved too fast to be calm. I took mine to the garage, cleaned the workbench, and put air in the tires. It's amazing how many small tasks a man lets slide while he's waiting for permission to live inside his own house. The following days tightened the screws. Whenever I held my line, she invented an audience. She'd narrate me to her friends on speaker like I wasn't in the next room. "He's on this new independence kick." The first time I nearly laughed. Independence from what? My own over-accommodation. I put on shoes and walked a mile before dinner. The air was cold enough to make the inside of my nose sting. It felt clean. Midweek, she weaponized concern. "You seem unhappy," she said, tilting her head with the empathy face. "Is it work? Is it me?" I was careful. "I'm clear." I said, "That's different from unhappy." "Clear about what?" "What I will and won't do," I said. "I'll listen. I'll compromise when it's actually mutual. I won't respond to tests." The word tests landed. Here your lids flinched. She recovered fast. "You're imagining things." "Maybe," I said, and went upstairs to call my brother about fishing in the spring. I booked the cabin we always talked about but never chose. The old script called for me to circle back after these moments, put a hand on her shoulder, and ask how we could reset. That script stayed in the drawer. I still did normal husband tasks, took out the trash, replaced the furnace filter, fixed the cabinet hench. I was refusing to be steered by scarcity. She kept trying to sell me a drought. I started carrying my own canteen. The next Saturday, she arranged a double date with a couple who loves conflict disguised as banter. I said I'd pass and suggested she go without me. She told me it would look bad. I asked to whom. After she left, I cooked a steak, FaceTimed my nephew, and fell asleep reading without the TV on. She came home late, made just enough noise to register that she had returned, then climbed into bed without comment. Thessalon's wasn't cold anymore. It was honest. The pressure built differently after that. Less smug, more tentative. She tried a direct appeal one night, sitting on the edge of the couch like she had news. "We should schedule a weekend away," she said, watching my face instead of the calendar. "Reset, you know." "I'm not against it," I said, "but a weekend is a gloss if the terms underneath don't change." "What terms?" "Respect isn't contingent," I said, "and closeness isn't currency." For once, she looked at the coffee table like the answer might be there. The old lever had stopped working. You could see the moment she realized she didn't have a replacement part. I was steady. The man she thought could be her weather vane had turned into a post set in concrete. She could walk past and check the wind if she wanted, but it would never spin because she whistled. The decision didn't arrive with fireworks. It clicked in like a seatbelt. One motion final. I stopped living like a man waiting for rations dropped from a helicopter that might never come. No statements, just a quiet update to the operating system. I would not be trained by shortage again. The first change was subtraction. I took the lever off the table. At night I read on my side, lamp low, shoulders loose. When a thought wandered toward bargaining, I brought it back like a dog with good recall. She noticed by the second evening, a hand on my shoulder, a playful tone, the robe she used like ass switch. I smiled and asked how her day went. Morning routines hardened in the best way. Gym before sunrise because my legs needed work I'd been putting off. The quiet weight room became a relief. No commentary or tests, only gravity telling the truth. I added 5 minutes to the rower each session and logged it without fanfare. Numbers didn't care, well proved. By the end of the week, I was sleeping deeper, waking clearer. That alone told me how much mental bandwidth I'd been spending on walking the maze. I rebalanced my calendar. Lunch with my brother on Wednesdays, non-negotiable. Friday, coffee with a friend from the old warehouse team. The guy who never says much, but always remembers birthdays. Saturday hikes stayed on the ledger. I didn't announce any of it. I just stopped canceling. The small flinches I used to feel when I pressed send on those plans were gone. It turns out anxiety looks a lot like permission. You think you owe someone. She tried to pull me back with nostalgia. The playlist from our first year. The favorite whiskey set out next to a low glass. The old inside jokes that had been packed away and suddenly reissued. I laughed at the right places, thanked her for the pour, and went back to the spreadsheet I was building for a cost overrun analysis. Because I refused to make closeness performative, the phone became neutral ground. I stopped waiting for the buzz that meant the climate had changed, and I was allowed to be happy. I turned off half my notifications, left the other half for work and family. When she texted midday selfies with a caption that read, "Miss me," I answered with "Meeting in 5. Call you after." When she sent a calendar invite titled Reset Weekend, I accepted it with a note. Discuss terms first. She ignored the note and started browsing boutique cabins. I let it sit. Silence isn't a weapon if you don't swing it. Mine wasn't punishment. It was the absence of a chase. When she went cool after a decision she didn't like, I didn't patch it. I let normal life sound like itself. Dishwasher home, laundry tumbling, ESPN. Low in the background. The home stopped feeling like a test site and started feeling like a place again. Work sharpened. Without the domestic tug toward constant appeasement, I made one call I'd been avoiding. I told a client that our team wouldn't eat their rush fees just because their procurement manager forgot lead times existed. I offered the real timeline, the real cost and alternatives that saved them money if they learned to plan. The client respected it. At 5:40 p.m., I shut the laptop and didn't check emails again until morning. She escalated to proximity. Movie on blanket half shared, her leg finding mine. My body had memory of being rewarded for caving. Memory can be retrained. When she leaned in, I let it be what it was. Present, small, not a contract. She withdrew first, surprised that warmth could end without a credit attached. Friends invited us to a game night with people who love performative affection. Before, I would have used the evening to showcase how fine we were. This time I said I had an early morning run and suggested she go. She stayed home and sat beside me with her phone, scrolling without reading, glancing up to see if I'd ask what was wrong. I only ask questions I intend to carry to the end. I made one symbolic move that mattered only to me. I set up a second pillow on the couch in the office, the spot I use for reading and short naps. I didn't sleep there. I just made it ready, a quiet declaration that peace had options. Knowing I could choose space without theater made the bedroom feel less like a negotiation table. There was a moment midweek that could have undone months of clarity if I'd still been the old version of me. She came home in a dress that made the room quiet, hair down, lip color she uses when she wants a yes. She stood in the doorway and smiled. It was a real smile, I think. I stood up, walked to her, kissed her forehead and told her she looked incredible. Then I went back to chopping vegetables. She watched me slice peppers, waiting for the invitation that never arrived. Later, she drifted over, arms around my waist, that familiar press into my back. I covered her hands with mine, felt the warmth, breathed once, and stepped aside to drain the pasta. I could feel her confusion in the way her hands fell away. Control had been replaced by contact. Contact wasn't enough. Quiet boundaries accumulated. I stopped debriefing my day to someone who weaponized detail. I kept the stories he wanted to share and gave the rest to the people who actually asked. I moved my running shoes from the closet to the front door like a man who expects to use them. I replaced the dead porch bulb without asking if the warm tone matched her palate. I scheduled a dental cleaning. You learned fast how much of your life you deferred to someone else's temperature when you start booking appointments again. One night, she broke the pattern. No play acting, just a straight question across the dark. Why don't you want me? I stared at the ceiling and found the only answer that wouldn't restart the old loop. I want a marriage that doesn't use closeness as leverage. If that's not what we have, I won't pretend it is. She said nothing for a long time. By the end of the month, my days had a shape that didn't wobble every time the house did. I could feel her testing for edges less often because the map had changed. She learned that I would be kind without being compliant. I became a man who could walk through his own rooms without asking permission to feel okay. That's what silent withdrawal actually is. When you strip the performance from it, stopping the chase, stopping the scripts, letting your actions tell the only story that matters. I'm done playing, and without a player, the game gets very quiet. Guilt arrived first, dressed in concern and carrying a mirror I was supposed to look into. She stood in the doorway of the office while I logged mileage from the hike and said she felt shut out. The words were careful, the tone softer than usual. I swiveled in my chair and listened without interrupting. The script called for me to apologize for changing. I told her I had adjusted because the way we were operating had turned into a negotiation I never signed up for. She frowned like I'd mispronounced a word we both knew and asked if we could just start over. I said we could start honest. She blinked, left the room, and let 2 plates rattle a little louder than necessary in the sink. When guilt didn't land, she tried seduction like a reset button. New perfume, late-night whisper in the hall, her thigh resting against mine on the couch while a show I wasn't watching played. I kept contact as contact and nothing more. She tightened her grip, then loosened it when she realized I wasn't going to supply the rest of the scene. You could feel the confusion build, not explosive, just pressurized. The lever worked when I chased without the chase. The lever was a handle attached to air. Blame came next, as if a new label would move the old problem. She told me my withdrawal was cruel, that a real husband would fight to fix things, that I was being petty. I told her I was being precise. I was refusing to be measured by scarcity. She said I was twisting words. I let it sit. Arguments that need your heat can't live without it. The kitchen felt larger when I stopped supplying fire. Then panic, not screaming, a faster kind. Invitations to double dates, sudden quality time plans that required me to cancel what I'd already booked. A rushed idea for a weekend trip that skimmed over the conversation it was supposed to solve. I heard the speed and slowed down on purpose. I said I was open to time together once we were aligned on terms. She asked what terms again, like the word had changed definitions since last week. I repeated them. Respect not contingent, closeness not currency. She stared past my shoulder and said, "We were making this more complicated than it needed to be. Simple as easy when you hold the remote." Her friends noticed before her family did. The same 2 who cheered her earlier monologue started texting me directly. "Everything okay?" I said we were sorting things out and left it there. Whatever story she'd been telling them ran out of runway when I stopped providing the counter-story that made them feel useful. A week later, at a birthday dinner, one of them leaned in and whispered that I seemed different in a good way. My wife heard it. That mattered. The first public slip happened at a neighbor's cookout. She told Asmal's circle that I'd been distant and needed to relearn how to be affectionate. She laughed like it was a quirk, something fixable with a theme date night. Our neighbor Mari, who has 3 teenagers and a radar for nonsense, asked calmly, "Is that mutual?" The table went quiet in that light suburban way. I could have rescued her. She changed the subject to the grill. Later, as we walked home with a bowl I hadn't wanted to bring, she accused me of letting people think badly of her. I said I had let them think for themselves. Her family arrived at the edges through a different door. Her mother FaceTimed and asked if we were okay. I told her we were recalibrating and that I was committed to a healthy outcome, together or apart. The phrasing slowed everyone down. Her mother doesn't like slow. She said marriage is about working through things. I agreed and added that working isn't the same as bargaining. Later that night, my wife said I had embarrassed her by being dramatic to her mom. I told her clarity always looks dramatic to someone used to fog. The most revealing day came when she tried to reassert control with a gesture she assumed would trump the conversation. She booked a fancy spa resort for a last-minute weekend and texted me the confirmation with a winking emoji. No discussion or check-in about my schedule. It used to be the kind of grand move that shut me up and made me grateful. I replied, "Looks nice. We can go once we solve the thing the trip would hide." She didn't respond for an hour. When she finally did, the sentence was a door slam. Forget it. I went to the gym, hit my lifts, ate the same breakfast, and sent my brother a link to the fishing license portal. By afternoon, the slam door cracked open into a long message about how relationships require compromise. I wrote back, "Agree. I won't compromise on being treated like a partner." She left it on read. Silence did what it does. It told the truth we were too tired to repeat. 2 days later, she swung back towards sweetness, the big version this time. Candlelight in the dining room. Reservations at a place that books 3 weeks out address that could have paused traffic on KFAX. I appreciated the effort. I told her so. At the table, she reached for my hand and said we should get back to us. I asked which us. She meant the one where affection is a signal for negotiation, or the one where affection is the normal language of 2 adults who respect each other independent of outcomes. She pulled her hand back like the table had shocked her. The waiter arrived with water. Timing is a comedian that never gets tired. There's a version of events where a man uses his new steadiness as a cudgel. That wasn't mine. I still did everything my name was on. I paid bills, fixed the gate latch, checked tire pressure, mowed the lawn. I answered when spoken to, and didn't ghost my own house. But I didn't participate in reenactments. That's what broke the game. The rules didn't change loudly. They expired quietly. She'd pick up a piece and find it no longer fit the board. Other people started seeing it without a speech for me. At her sister's barbecue, someone made a wife's control husband's joke that would have gotten a cheap laugh last year. It landed flat. My brother-in-law asked me about a trail near Evergreen, and we spent 10 minutes talking elevation gain like the rest of the noise wasn't there. My wife watched the conversation without inserting herself. Afterward, in the car, she said I'd become aloof. I said I'd become congruent. The panic phase peaked on a Wednesday night when she came to bed late and finally said the quiet part like a real question. What do you need from me? For a second, I saw the woman I married. The one who used to meet me halfway without keeping receipts. I kept my voice even. I need partnership without performance. If you want me, want me. If you don't, say it, but don't price it. She stared at the ceiling and nodded once, small like she'd heard a diagnosis she suspected but didn't want confirmed. The next morning, she canceled brunch with Kara and stayed home. No big speech. She folded towels and asked how my call with the automation vendor went. Normal questions, real ones. After lunch, she drifted, got restless, and I could feel the old engine turn over. She almost reached for the lever and stopped. That counted. Growth doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It skips one reflex and chooses another. A week of small resets followed. She initiated a walk without her phone. Said yes to a plan I had instead of maybe. Touched me once with no agenda attached. Progress but not completion. Then a message pinged from one of her friends, the one who loves drama, inviting her to a night out to remind you who you are. She read it, looked at me and said she might go. I told her to enjoy herself if she did. She studied my face for a tell, found none, and put the phone face down. That night, she didn't go. She sat on the back steps and watched the sky leak into the fence line. When I joined her, she asked if I wanted tea. I said, sure. It was almost nothing, and it was everything. The game hadn't disappeared because I won. It had withered because I stopped feeding it. And now in the quieter space left behind, people were starting to see who we each were without the props. She tried one last move, a half confession wrapped in a half apology. I thought that was how women kept control, she said, eyes on the mug in her hands. I nodded. It's how people avoid honesty, I said. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for months. We didn't solve it on the steps, but the performance lost its audience. And without applause, it couldn't stand on its own legs. I went to bed certain of one thing. I was reachable for truth and unreachable for games. Everyone around us could finally tell the difference. So could she. The next move would be her first real one in a long time, or the last gesture before the curtain dropped. Either way, I'd sleep fine. We didn't end with a slammed door or a suitcase in the lawn. It came down to a table, 2 mugs, and a list I kept short enough to remember. Saturday morning light, the good kind, clear and square on the wood. I'd slept well. She looked like she'd practiced 5 openings and abandoned all of them. I spared us both the warm-up. I'm going to put my terms on the table, I said. Not to threaten, to be clear. She nodded like she was bracing for impact. Number 1, partnership without performance. No more using closeness as leverage. If you're upset, say it. If you want me, don't price it. Number 2, mutual plans. My calendar isn't open inventory. We decide together. Number 3, we fix what's underneath, not the optics. No reset weekends to avoid the talk. If this works, it works on Tuesday night after takeout, just as much as at a mountain cabin. I stopped there. I had more, but more gives people places to hide. She wrapped both hands around her mug and stared into it like it might whisper the right answer. And if I can't, she asked. Then we separate, I said cleanly. With respect. You have your path. I have mine, but I won't live inside a negotiation again. The old me would have rushed to soften that, to offer an escape hatch before the silence swallowed the room. I let the quiet sit. It wasn't a threat. It was a description. She looked tired in a way that felt honest. I don't know who taught me that was power, she said. Maybe I didn't want to feel small. You're not small, I said. You just kept choosing the smallest tool. We waved at two neighbors and talked about nothing. Back home, she went upstairs to shower. I cleaned the coffee rings off the table and booked myself into a Sunday boxing class. The next week was uneventful in a way that told the truth. We operated like two adults with a shared lease and a question hanging between them. Wednesday night. She put her phone in a drawer and sat on the couch without the armor. "Can we try a conversation where no one keeps score?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, and turned off the TV. We talked about the small betrayals that don't make headlines, canceled plans. No one admits we're canceled. Jokes that land like jabs. How easy it is to replace attention with control, because attention asks more of you. She said she'd learned to negotiate because negotiating felt safer than asking. I told her I'd learned to appease because appeasing felt safer than leaving. We were honest enough to hear how ugly that sounded out loud. We just put our hands flat on our own legs and let words be the only thing in the room. By Friday, she asked me to go with her to a counseling session she'd scheduled. Someone practical who assigns homework. I said yes with one condition: not heater in the room, no theater at home. She agreed. The therapist asked us to list our non-negotiables, then asked us to prove we could honor the other persons without being policed. That homework was either going to be the bridge or the goodbye. We did the work for 3 weeks. She apologized once without brackets or asterisks. I accepted once without turning it into a manifesto. It planned a weekend breakfast. She didn't forget and punish me for the past. She planned a dinner and didn't make it a test. In bed, we started simple. Hands, conversation, no script. There's a difference between someone meeting you and someone rewarding you. It felt like meeting. It also felt fragile. Then the midpoint reality check arrived, the one you don't schedule. Her friends planned a night out to get the old you back. She showed me the text. I told her to go if she wanted to. She looked at me for the old tell, found nothing, and said she'd pass. She replied to the group that she was working on different things now and didn't need the crowd. The phone went quiet. She put it face up on the counter like that meant something. Maybe it did. On Sunday, we sat in the car outside the grocery store and faced the part I'd been living like a question mark. "Do you want this marriage?" I asked. "Or do you want the version where I'm a shape you move around so you don't have to feel vulnerable?" Her answer was clean. "I want the marriage, and I'm willing to feel stupid learning how." That might be the bravest sentence I've ever heard in my kitchen, my car, or my life. I believed it enough to try. Trying didn't mean erasing my exit. I kept my boundaries where I could see them. I kept my own calendar, my gym time, my brother's Wednesday lunches. 2 months later, I realized I'd stopped checking the climate before I smiled. We hiked without keeping score. We argued about a dumb lamp and solved it in 20 minutes. She grabbed my hand while we crossed the street because the light changed and the world was moving. And still, I don't romanticize it. We didn't transform into a couple who posts golden hour carousels with captions about doing the work. We became two people who can say no without losing yes. That's better than romantic. It's sustainable. There's an alternate timeline where she picked her crowd over this table where the lever won, because it was easy. In that timeline, I pack a bag and leave quietly, forwarding my mail and changing passwords, not out of spite, but alignment. I know that version because I kept it real the whole time. Kept an apartment link in my notes, kept a list of furniture I'd take, kept my head clear enough to go if respect didn't show up. The option made me honest. It made her honest too. One evening, months after the first talk, wearing into Mari, the neighbor with teenagers and a radar for nonsense. She looked at us, really looked, then smiled. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." My wife laughed, the kind of small laugh that means thanks without a speech. We walked home with pasta and yogurt. Nothing heroic in the bags. She paused at the door and said, "You know, you could have left, right?" "I did," I said. "That's why I could stay." I don't know how our story lands for anyone else. I know how it lands for me. Respect isn't a clause you add later. It's the ground you build on, or it's quicksand. The lever she thought controlled me is scrap metal. Now in its place is something simple. Two people who show up without a price tag. If that ever changes, if the old game tries to creep back with a new coat of paint, I won't negotiate with it. I won't stage interventions or beg for decency. I'll wish her well, hand her what's hers, and walk out with my name, my peace, and my Tuesday night. Because staying is a choice, not a sentence, and respect is not negotiable. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the